President Biden is working overtime to use even more taxpayer money of American citizens. And you won't guess who's working hand in hand with our commander-in-chief. One hint is that he was just gifted $61 billion to keep trying to fight off Russia. Now, you may have already guessed, we're talking about Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. And yes, even after $61 billion was approved for the war, he and President Joe Biden, they're already back on the drawing board to get even more. There are a lot of lawmakers who can't believe this idea. However, we really shouldn't be surprised. Were you guys aware that some of our government officials are apologizing to Zelensky for not giving them enough money fast enough? You might think that I'm making this up, but this is absolutely true. Listen to what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say about this.
Does he need more specific weapons in the immediate term?
Well, one of the things I apologize for is it's taken too long. If you go back to the beginning of this administration, even though I supported, obviously, this supplemental request and worked hard to get Republican votes for it, this all started with the precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. It's like sending out the green light to all the rogue regimes around the world that the Americans are going home. Number two, not giving the Ukrainians what they need soon enough. Didn't just start with this administration. I remember the Obama administration sent them meals ready to eat. It's not exactly a way to defend yourself.
Following the 2014 partial invasion.
Yeah. So it's gradually gotten better. The administration's still been self-deterring themselves with some fear that the Russians would be deterred by our lack of action. So my main complaint is, let's get the weapons there as quickly as possible. I apologize for how long it took Congress to do its part, but we finally did. And he was also impressed by the fact that Republican support grew in the Senate substantially.
Now, before we really get into this, guys, all I ask is that you take 1 second, hit the like button for the video. I totally appreciate you. And I want to thank you as always for sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. I told you guys, I wasn't kidding. Mitch McConnell is apologizing for not getting this aid to Ukraine fast enough. He actually apologized for Congress and for the entire United States. And now we're hearing that President Biden and Zelensky are talking about a bilateral security agreement that would make sure that the Ukraine gets even more taxpayer money. Now, you're not going to believe it, but he and Biden, they're talking about how they can produce support for Ukraine that would last a decade. Now, just to clarify, guys, that would span the next 3 terms of our country's presidency. This means that whoever wins this November is probably going to have a headache on their hands because they want to make this thing into law. In fact, Zelensky called this next agreement as the strongest of them all. Some experts believe that this is them preparing for the Trump administration because the former president has already said that he's got a plan to end this war within a day, which would effectively cease funding to the Ukraine because there would be no more wars left to fight. Now, many have called out the Ukrainian leader for always looking to the American people for money, insinuating that we're not doing enough when in reality, we've sent almost $200 billion over to them. Do any of you guys feel as if we need to send more money? And what's with Mitch McConnell and this apology? It looks as if Mitch McConnell is very much in line with the Biden administration, not just with foreign aid, but with the political persecution of Donald Trump as well. A recent interview of Mitch McConnell showed him backing up a previous statement of his with regard to presidential immunity. He said that presidents can be found criminally and civilly liable for their actions, fortifying the idea that Donald Trump does not have presidential immunity for his actions. Now, many critics have already shown disdain for Mitch McConnell's comments, with some even calling him a rhino. Others claim that if Donald Trump doesn't have immunity, then the same goes for President Joe Biden, the same man who Republicans claim to be at fault for our border crisis. Although Mitch McConnell also admitted that the choice wasn't his and that this was left at the hands of the Supreme Court. And with that being said, we now seem to have a slight clue as to what one of them might say when it comes to this immunity case. A legal review from Justice Brett Kavanaugh from years ago suggests that he has believed in presidents being protected from prosecution because of the difficulty of their job and because there are other ways and avenues in which a president can be held accountable. He cited the impeachment process is available if a president does something that's incredibly out of line. He further added that no single prosecutor, judge, or jury should be able to accomplish what the Constitution assigns to the Congress. The text also says that once a president is removed through impeachment, criminal prosecution can follow afterwards. Now, the big difference here is that Trump is running for president this year. Many analysts are waiting for Kavanaugh's outlook now, out, given that there's a chance that the former president takes a second term, something that's becoming a bigger and bigger possibility, especially with the polls as of late. So Donald Trump continues to maintain a healthy lead against President Biden. Opinions are also coming out about the two, and it looks like more Americans are becoming nostalgic about the good old days with former President Donald Trump. It shows that a majority of Americans are now saying that Donald Trump's term as president was a success, while Biden so far has been a failure. The polls also show that if they went head to head against each other, Donald Trump would lead Biden by 6 points. However, if we factor in third-party candidates like RFK Jr., Cornel West, and Jill Stein, Trump would then lead the president by 9 points. And just to show you how bad it is for the president right now, the poll that we're talking about here, it was coming from CNN.
The new polling out today on the 2024 race. Walk us through what this means for the president.
Well, it's still very much a close race, but again, Donald Trump showing in these polls that he continues to hold an advantage over President Joe Biden. Now, according to these numbers that you see there on your screen, 49% of registered voters choose Donald Trump, and then only 43% for Biden. Now, earlier in the year, Biden's numbers were around 45%, so those numbers are holding steady. And there are issues that are dogging the president and that his team is well aware of. One of them being the handling of Israel's war against Hamas that is unfolding in Gaza. Now, you've seen the protesters that have been happening across campuses, and according to our polling here, there is major disapproval over the president's handling of the Israel-Hamas war, with 71% disapproving. And then two is the economy. And this has been an issue that the White House and the Biden campaign have tried to convey to voters that it is heading in the right direction. But we are still seeing in these numbers that there is still quite a bit of a hesitation over whether that's indeed true, with registered voters here only 34% approving of the president's handling of the economy.
And in some even more bad news for President Biden, new details show how one of his closest relatives made money off of the Biden name. It's been said that the foreign fundraising efforts by Jim Biden, the brother of the president, shows that he partnered with government officials from Qatar. The sworn testimony comes from Michael Lewitt, a former business partner of Jim Biden's. Public records and emails show Jim Biden's fundraising efforts by invoking his connection to his older brother. He also sought workarounds to restrictions on international money movements, a move very similar to that of Hunter Biden, who also made money off of the VP's name. This news is also not expected to help the incumbent president, even though he for sure needs the help. So a new poll shows that President Joe Biden is now the least popular president at this point of his term in the last 70 years. He got a 38.7% job approval rating for the first quarter of the year. Pollsters concluded that with just months before the election day, the incumbent president is now in a weaker position than any other prior president before him. But what do you guys think of all this? Is President Joe Biden in trouble of losing power? And if so, will he be charged for possible crimes done under his term? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'll make sure to keep you guys posted on all the updates. I want to thank you all so much for always hitting the like button for the video. Thanks for sharing these videos on social media, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.